leadership. Questions?
To all of you, will there be any votes on any other abortion-related measures, such as protecting exceptions of rape and incest or contraception or anything like that? I know the House already passed it, but is there anything else that the House will do?
Well, I'm going to yield to Diana and Judy, but as both of our leaders mentioned, the House has done its job. We're thankful for the vision, the foresight, the leadership of Representative Chu, who introduced this legislation years ago because she saw exactly what was coming. And we were able to move the legislation through the House. We don't want to let the Senate off the hook today. The Senate has a job to do, including senators on the Republican side of the aisle who profess to be pro-choice, who profess to support a woman's freedom to make her own health care decisions, the senator from Maine and the senator from Alaska. Let's see what they do today. And then we'll see what the legislative landscape is that we confront after the Senate weighs in.
We don't have anything to add.
Yeah.
Chairman, can I ask you, Representative Chu and Representative DeGette, you both mentioned that you have a pro-choice majority in the House. There are only 49 Democratic senators in the Senate who say that they support the House-passed bill. Is there room in your party? We obviously have two people, Senator Manchin and Representative Cuellar. Is there room in your party anymore for members who are not pro-choice?
Well, I'm going to yield to
Yeah. You want me to
Diana.
take it?
Yeah.
So over the years, because of their personal religious beliefs, we have had a number of women a number of members of the Democratic caucus who were not pro-choice. And over the years, what has happened after they talked to their constituents and a number of them, Judy, you've probably talked to them too. I've talked to a number of these folks, and they have searched their souls, and they realized that their public duties to full health care for their constituents, they shouldn't be imposing their personal religious beliefs on their public duties. But there's always room in our party for people who have all different personal beliefs. And it just so happens that these folks are listening to their constituents.
I would just say, look at Senator Casey. Casey has a personal religious belief about abortion, but he has decided he is going to vote for this bill because he knows that this should be a decision made between a woman and her doctor, that this is a private decision. And Senator Casey should not be making that decision for that woman, nor should Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz. It should be a decision made by that woman, and that is what Senator Casey is respecting.
Thank you.
Congressman Jeffries, on Congressman Cuellar, how do you defend to abortion rights supporters your continued support for him, given that he was the one Democrat to vote against the Women's Health Protection Act, and given that it's a Democratic district, he has a pro-choice challenger? Why is supporting incumbents more important than abortion rights?
I have 100% record when it comes to supporting reproductive freedom, going all the way back to my time in the legislature. I've served in public office for 16 years. My record speaks for itself.
Wondering if you have any reaction to the inflation numbers today, 8.3% year over year, 0.3% month over month. Any thoughts on that?
Well, as President Biden has indicated, we are going to work and focus like a laser beam on dealing with the inflationary pressures that the American people are experiencing in terms of food prices, certainly in terms of gas prices, and every other day-to-day kitchen table pocketbook issue that Democrats work on, Republicans talk about, but do nothing about. And as my grandmother used to say, the proof is in the pudding. And if you look at the Biden record on the economy, he inherited one that was on the brink of complete and total collapse, perhaps an economic circumstance worse than the Great Recession, had Democrats not acted decisively. But with President Biden's leadership, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, Judy Chu, Democrats on both sides of the Capitol, we acted decisively. We passed the American Rescue Plan. We saved the economy, put money in pockets, shots in arms, kids back in school, and laid the foundation for a strong economic recovery. More than 8 million good paying jobs created during President Biden's first 16 months in office, a record. Fastest rate of economic growth in 40 years. Unemployment down to pre-pandemic lows of 3.6%. Wages have increased for the first time in 40 years in a meaningful way. And all of that was accomplished by also reducing the deficit by more than $350 billion in President Biden's first year. We're on track for a deficit reduction to exceed $1 trillion this year. So yes, there's more work that needs to be done. President Biden has already indicated that we're focused on doing the work, lowering costs for everyday Americans, and Democrats will continue to deliver.
COVID aid package is going to start in the House now after it stalled out in the Senate and was separated from Ukraine. Do you expect that supplemental to be a House Democratic product or a four corners negotiation, and how soon do you think it could get moving to the floor?
Well, I think that question is probably best answered by Speaker Pelosi. We always endeavor to find common ground, have a four corners agreement whenever and wherever possible. Certainly in the Senate, that is necessary in order to get something over the finish line because of their particularized rules. In the House, certainly we always hope that our colleagues will join with us on the other side of the aisle to decisively act to continue to try to crush the COVID virus and end this pandemic once and for all in a meaningful way. But that remains to be seen what my colleagues on the other side of the aisle will do. But we certainly will need some form of bipartisan agreement eventually emerging from the Senate. Go back to this side.
Thanks, Congressman. The party has been very clear. It's important to hold this vote because you want to get everybody on the record. And as Congresswoman Chu said, it's also a way to show your voters, mobilize them, show that you are fighting back. To what extent do you think holding this vote might have the opposite effect and maybe be demoralizing, because it is a reminder of the limits of your narrow majority?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I'm going to yield to Judy Chu, who's a champion of this legislation.
I think if anything, it will galvanize the voters. I don't see it being something that will suppress them. It will activate them more to see how important it is to get involved in the elections, which are just around the corner. And in fact, primaries are occurring all over the place. Already, candidates are being asked about their abortion stand. I've seen a total change in the way the elections are being processed, even as of this last week. And this is on not just the federal level, it's on the state and the local level. In my state of California, they decided immediately to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot to uphold the right to an abortion. So it's changed the landscape totally, and I expect more of these kinds of decisions and changes to go on moving forward. And every candidate now is having to decide how they will answer the question of choice. And it's going to be very, very interesting, especially in the seats that are swing seats.
And I just add the fight to preserve the constitutional protections that are in Roe v. Wade had been settled law and precedent, even according to many of the now justices who apparently have changed their position first opportunity they've gotten. This is a fight for liberty. It's a fight for freedom. It's a fight for democracy. And whenever we've been in fights like that in the past, we don't always get the decisive result initially, but you continue to make progress, march toward a more perfect union, and eventually get there. The first time civil rights legislation was brought to the floor was not in 1964 with the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That wasn't the first time civil rights legislation was brought to the fore. There was a concerted effort to build up to that moment, often led by former Congressman Adam Clayton Powell, who tried and tried and tried again. Eventually, they got there. Hopefully, we can get it done today in the Senate. But even if we don't, it's not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end. It's only the end of the beginning of a fight that we will win to protect a woman's freedom to make her own healthcare decisions. Last question.
The Senate on Monday passed unanimously a bill that would provide additional protections to the families of Supreme Court justices amid these protests over Roe. Are you supportive of that legislation, one, and is there a plan to bring it to the floor?
Yeah, I haven't seen the legislation yet. Look forward to reviewing it. Steny did not bring it up today in terms of pending legislation that's before the House this week. I assume the appropriate committee will review it, make their recommendations, decide how to act, perhaps refer it out, and then the caucus will have an opportunity to decide what to do with it then.
Do you think it's justified? Is it merited based on?
Haven't reviewed the legislation, but I certainly think that all public servants, people who step forward, whether you're in the Article 1 legislative branch, the Article 2 executive branch, the Article 3 judicial branch, deserve to make sure that their safety and security, particularly of that of their families, are protected. And so we'll have an opportunity to review the particulars of the legislation. I haven't, but I certainly support the notion that public servants should be protected in the strongest way possible at all times. If anyone believes in that, it's House Democrats, who were almost overrun by a violent mob of insurrectionists on January 6th. If anyone believes in that, it's us. But we'll take a look at the particulars of the legislation and then decide how to act.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judy, for your tremendous leadership. Thank you, everyone.